All right, Cubs fam, it's a new year and it is time to make some goals. And if you're like me, I want to be better at Grand Arena. And so in today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 tips to take your Grand Arena to the next level. Go ahead and punch it, Chewy. Arena, my favorite game mode, probably the best part of Galaxy of Heroes in many people's opinions. Love it or hate it, it is where I think a lot of people get the most excitement in this game. And so let's get through 5 tips on how you can take your Grand Arena to the next level. Now, tip number 1, we'll go back here in this footage here. I want to talk about this bottom zone here in Grand Arena. Whether it's 3v3 or 5v5, this bottom zone here should have strong defense. Now, I'm not going to suggest that it has to be the absolute strongest, but what you really want to focus on is making your opponents pay a price for the information of what is on the back wall. In the current state of Grand Arena, all you've got to do is clear that zone, and then you know basically everything you need to know about the characters. You know that you're going to have ships, but that's kind of just, it is what it is with ships. With characters, what you do to attack that top zone is going to need to be influenced on the information of what is behind the bottom zone. And so if you're setting a light defense, I think some people sometimes get in this trap of they want to hide what their good defense is. I don't mind the idea of hiding a good team on the back row or even a couple good teams, but make your opponent spend something big to know what's behind there. Because if they don't have to do that, if they just see, all right, something's tough up top, something's easy on bottom, maybe there's more points on bottom if it's 5v5, so you may think I need to set a tougher top defense, then your opponent doesn't really have to pay anything to know everything that's on the board, and that dramatically benefits them strategically. I love it. For example, I'm almost always going up against 2 or 3 Galactic Legends, and when my opponents don't set a Galactic Legend in the bottom zone, I love them so much. Even sometimes if they don't put Darth Revan or anything that great there, because then I can get away without using any of my big teams. I don't have to use my Galactic Legend. I don't have to use my Darth Revan. I don't have to use my CLS or whatever some of those big teams are. That makes a huge difference in what I'm going to do on the top row. However, if I have to make a decision of, all right, so I've got a Galactic Legend down here and I've got another one up north, what am I going to do? If there's something good behind here, should I underman this? Should I try to finagle things a little bit? And then you get a double-sided benefit there of, number 1, they're going to spend a good team that maybe they didn't need to spend because you've got a cheesy back wall. Or number 2, maybe they underman it or underball it and end up losing. So tip number 1, set a strong defense on the bottom. Make your opponents pay for information. I think that is huge. Now, tip number 2 is to not unnecessarily underman teams that you don't need to underman. Now, part of this is going to connect to, I'm not making this a tip. I think a lot of people just do this naturally, but it's really beneficial if your opponent attacks first, because then you have the important knowledge of how much you need to do to win. You don't always have that opportunity. Sometimes you have to go first or your opponent's going to hold out until the end and you're just in this little staring match. And so I say this, like, don't unnecessarily underman. Maybe you're going to want to confidently underman certain compositions when your opponent hasn't attacked yet, but especially when your opponent has attacked you. I strongly advise you to be aware of how many banners you need in each zone. Do the math. Find out the averages. I do this. I actually have my chat do this for me usually because I'm too lazy. But know when you need to take a risk and when you don't need to take a risk. There's been times where I take in a solo character and I almost lose, or I do lose, and I didn't even need to try to solo. Sometimes you do it because you want to save certain characters for other things, but usually if you've got that first zone cleared already, most people aren't going to underman lower zones, especially if you got a strong defense there. You know how many characters you've got in the way to get through things. And so just be aware of when you need to underman, when you don't need to underman, and do not underman when it's not necessary. Sometimes it's just not worth the risk. All right, tip number 3, look, Everybody is going to laugh at me. I'm going to get comments about this. Ships is the secret, okay? Ships is the secret of Grand Arena, guys. Ships is a make or break scenario for a lot of people. Now, I'm going to illustrate this. I'm going to put myself on the hot seat here. I have a pretty decent Grand Arena score. Guys, if you look at my Grand Arena score here, let's see here. I'll put my my display up. I've got a almost 540,000 lifetime score. That's pretty decent. That's pretty decent. I think that score would be a lot higher if I was a little bit stronger at ships. In the last month, I have probably lost 3 to 4. I don't remember exactly how many, but at least 3, maybe 4 Grand Arenas exclusively because of ships. My opponent had attacked first. I cleared the character zones confidently. They had dropped a battle. I didn't drop any, or I was being super efficient on my characters. I've got that part of Grand Arena pretty well down. And then I lay an egg on ships and literally lose the Grand Arena because of it. My last Grand Arena, I was in a championship. I was pacing to beat my opponent by 30 banners, and I laid an egg on both ship battles and lost by 4 banners. Even though my opponent had dropped character battles left and right, I didn't drop any character battles. My ships cost me dearly. Ships is where you separate the men from the boys in Grand Arena, so to speak. When you've got a really good fleet and you can set really good fleets on defense and confidently beat good fleets on offense, that gives you an edge that a lot of people just don't focus on. Now, here's the thing about the ships angle. If anybody understands how much you don't want to go after ships because you don't like the game mode, it's me. This is the boat I'm in. But learn from my mistakes, because I am paying a dear price for not being good at ships. And this is both not farming ships, because I really don't like how this game makes you split farm between ships and characters, i.e. if I farm ships, I'm cutting into my character farming time, vice versa. I really wish that it was completely separate, but it is what it is. And also it is because of a lack of knowledge, because I just don't play the game mode very much. There's attack strategy tips and things like that I'm just not very savvy with, that I need to get better at. So learn from my mistakes. I am losing Grand Arenas only because of ships, which means my valuable opponents that are just really crushing it right now are winning exclusively because of ships. Ships are the secret. All right, now I want to talk about the Grand Arena history that we've got here. Tip number 4 is to not always set the same D, and here's why. Your opponents can go into swgoh.gg. I know many of you know this, and they can go in and see what your defense is. Now, me personally, I don't spend a lot of time in this. There's times that I research my opponents. I'm going to be honest, a lot of times I just don't. And so I think it's valuable to research your opponents. I don't think it's the hear-all, the say-all, especially because if your opponent's smart, they're going to be changing up what their defense is. If you don't do that, and your opponent sees exactly what your defense is every time, and exactly what people have been taking against it, and that's exactly what they end up seeing, they're going to have a steep advantage. And so I highly recommend you have a couple different scenarios, different characters you're looking after, different defenses you set for different situations, and have a couple different approaches as you set defense. So I'll give you an example. I will, if my opponent has SOKR and Ray, and I'm thinking I might see both of those guys on defense, I'm always going to save my Watt for offense and not place a defensive squad with Watt, because I want to hang on to my Vader Watt counter for Ray so that I can use my Galactic Legend against SOKR. So little things like that to shake things up based on circumstance on what you're facing are going to be very, very valuable, so that you don't give your opponents an easy time. All right, finally, tip number 5, ladies and gentlemen, is to learn how to attack for banners, not for the win. This is so important in today's Grand Arena. People are playing a lot smarter nowadays, and I have seen situations where my opponent has dropped a battle, but they were extremely efficient otherwise, and I don't drop battles, and they dang near beat me. If I wasn't paying attention to the score, and if I don't think about things, maybe they would have beat me. You need to attack for banners. This encompasses a lot of things. It encompasses what your squad selection is. Like, for example, sometimes I don't place my Grievous on defense. I save him for offense. Using him on offense, though, is really risky because he just drains so many banners when you use him on offense. He might get that win. You might have that guaranteed win, but how many banners are you going to get? Is there a different team you can bring in that in your mind you can go, all right, I've got the protection recovery, or I'm going to get a good jump on them and prevent them from taking turns. How can you ensure that you have as much health and protection left at the end of the battle? And how can you ensure that you're not losing characters? Characters like Imperial Probe Droid that maybe you would use to, blow somebody up. That might be a back wall last case scenario kind of situation for you. But if you blow up your IPD, you're going to lose all of those banners. Losing characters is detrimental to your banners, not just losing that protection. And so attack with intent to gain high banners. This is another thing that separates the men from the boys in Grand Arena, who can go in and get 60 banners or 56 banners for 3v3 in most battles. And then, of course, undermanning strategically, which is something we already talked about. Don't want to do it unnecessarily, but you really want to hit that 60 banner mark as much as possible. And a part of that tip is to learn how to stall, learn how to stall harder. When you're using Jedi Revan, for example, and you're going up against Grievous, learn how to attack that team in a slow, deliberate way so that you take out the strategic players, maybe stall from taking anybody out until you can get that mark on General Grievous. What I usually do for that battle in particular is I'll take out B2, I'll take the hit from GG, I'll stall, I'll try not to kill anybody else until I can mark GG, then I zerg him down, and then I'll stall as hard as I can so that I can get every single person back up to full health, full protection. It's very possible to do with Jedi Revan, and then I end up with 60 banners. A lot of teams can do that. Learn how to stall and learn how to select appropriate teams so that you are getting as high banner counts as you possibly can. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. 5 Grand Arena tips to take you guys to the next level of Grand Arena play. What are some other tips you guys have? Fill up the comments below. Let me know how you guys are rocking your Grand Arenas. And be sure to check me out on my streaming Grand Arena all of the time. And like the video if you guys did enjoy it. And as always, my brothers, don't forget,